you can see in here, this is basically what the live room will be set up when you come in. It's got a couple of gobo phone blocks around 2 mini amps, so they're isolated a bit. There's 2 direct microphones, one on each amp, and there's a room microphone out there nulling out the amp so you can record the room sound. The directs are on channels 1 and 2, the room mic is on channel 3, and you can see way over there on channels 23 and 24 are 2 passive DIs that are going in reverse to those mini amps so we can send a signal to them. We are going to send this keyboard right here to Pro Tools. We're going to record a mono input of it, and then we are going to create a stereo output so that we can send 2 signals to 2 mini amps in there for reamping. Okay, so let's get started. This keyboard here is plugged in to control room balanced line input 1 via TRS. So my first step is I'm going to send it to an input on the console. So here's TRS 1 on the patch bay, and I'm going to patch it to input 9, line level input 9. That's because it's a keyboard, it doesn't need a whole lot of gain. And I'm plugging it into 9 because our mics are on the first couple channels. That way I can just kind of keep it off to the side and not have to worry about it getting in the way. Okay, so that means it's in on channel 9 here. I want to make sure that's set to line level with the flip button. And I can use the trim knob if I'd like to set the level a bit more. Okay, if I hit play here, I should be seeing a meter on 9, but I'm still not hearing anything because that's going upstream. If I want to hear what that sounds like, I can just send channel 9 to the mix bus and then make sure that the mix bus is what I'm monitoring over here with the master fader volume up. And then when I hit play, I can actually hear it come out of the speakers. Okay, as long as I like that signal, I can then send it to Pro Tools. So that's what I'll do next here. I will open up the I/O. And I'll make an input on 9. And now, since this is an analog session, we're going to be sending channels upstream to Pro Tools just to record a waveform. And then we're going to bring them back downstream so that we can mix them in the analog realm. So the first thing I'm going to do is make a stereo output so I can send that keyboard signal back downstream out of a stereo channel. That'll be the first step to us getting a stereo image in there by sending it to 2 different amps. So you can see here that I've decided to use B7 and 8, which is channels 23 and 24 on the console. Again, I just did that to keep it out of the way from our first channels. Okay, so if I make myself a mono track in Pro Tools, 1 mono audio track, I want to make sure it has that input and that output, input 9 and reamp. Okay, I'm going to call this my keys DI. And I'm going to hit record arm. Now, right now I'm hearing it on the upstream signal by monitoring this. But now that I have a downstream signal for it, I'm monitoring channels 23 and 24 by sending them to the mix bus and panning them out. Okay? If this is working, I should be able to hit the keyboard and you can see I'm getting downstream meters over there in stereo now. Okay? Didn't have to patch anything because it's normaled. Okay. So now we're going to have to make sure that we can send those signals out to those mini amps. We have 1 channel for each amp. So I'm going to turn these faders way down to like -30. I want them to be considerably quieter. I may turn them up a bit, but I want to start very quiet because we're feeding these to some reverse DIs. We got to handle the volume out here. Okay, now that I know they're sending a quieter signal, I'm going to patch the direct outputs, 23 and 24, and send them to mic panel A, 23 and 24, which means that they should be coming out of the mic panel over there and going to the reverse DIs on the mini amps. So if I hit something through this keyboard, it's now happening in the live room. Don't know how well you can hear that through the phone camera, but it's happening. So I can take these off monitoring now that they're going where they're supposed to. Okay, so now they're getting the amp. The next step is to place a short delay on the second reamp signal. So we'll make that channel 24 here. Now, since this is an analog mix, we're going to create the delay using some outboard gear. On the patch bay, I'm going to insert send channel 24 over to one of the MX200 in channels. And the output of that MX200 channel is going to go to insert return 24. Don't forget to actually turn on the insert on channel 24. Like so. Okay, so here is how it should be set up, the MX200 for inline delay. We've got the mixes at 100% because we're running this as an inline effect. We don't want a parallel delay. We want to actually just take all of the second channel and delay it a little bit. Okay, so to get things a little spot on, we basically just have the pre-delay and the decay all the way down, variation 2, and then we're just using the tempo to make a very, very, very fast delay. Basically just tap it as fast as you can, as long as it's on digital delay mode. Okay, that should be a super fast delay. Next thing I want to check is whether I actually have a decent meter coming through here. This is the input meter, so I'm going to play the keyboard track, and I'm just going to take a look at that meter. Let me just pause and do that. Okay, so I've just got it on loop over there, and it's coming in just a little hot. I'm going to back off the input a bit. Just don't want it to clip on me at any point. That's looking pretty good. Okay, so that means that our second channel has a delay. It's going to be just a little more late than the first channel, and since they're both going to different amps, they'll also have different sounds. Our next step to continue with making a stereo image by making the left and the right different is to record those amps in the room using 2 different direct mics on 2 different preamps as well as a room mic position. So let's start with the 2 direct mics. Okay, I'll just stop that loop for a minute. Now, our direct mics are on channels A1 and A2 in there, mic panel A1 and 2. So the first microphone, we're going to send to the drummer preamp. So I'm tapping mic panel A1 there, and I'm going to drummer in M1 for mic level. Okay, that will be an external preamp that we're going to return to line input 1 on the console. You can see the output there going to line input 1. Okay, that means I want to keep channel 1 as line level. And now don't forget that if you're ever moving any faders on the console, that we really only want to be adjusting analog faders. So make sure that this button is going blue for analog. Okay, so to receive your mics, channel 1 was set up on an external preamp, so we're going to leave it at line level here. But we're using the next 2 channels as the onboard preamps. We're going to flip them to mic level, and we're going to make sure that all 3 faders are up to make sure we get a signal to Pro Tools. Okay, I should be able to create some inputs now to receive those. So I'm going to make 3 inputs, 3 mono ins. Input 1, 2, and 3. But don't forget we're doing an analog mix, so I also need 3 more outputs. I'm going to keep it simple with less patching and just put those 3 on channels 4, 5, and 6. That way 1, 2, and 3 are my upstream channels, and 4, 5, and 6 are my downstream channels. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and make those 3 mono audio tracks. And it's just direct 1, direct 2, and the room. Okay, so make sure that they're on input 1, 2, and 3, and going to output 4, 5, and 6. You can use the Option Shift Command hotkey if you want to assign them all at once. I just have one hand free with my phone right now. Okay, so since I'm going to be playing this keyboard track and calibrating things before I actually print the track, I want to make sure these are on input monitor mode so that I can set gain levels for them. So that means that if I want to monitor the upstream signal for these 3 channels, I'm just going to put them on the record bus. That way I can hear them as an upstream signal. 4, 5, and 6 are my downstream signals, so I'm just going to place those on the mix bus. Okay, that way I can be on record bus to see what's going upstream and mix bus to see what's coming back. Okay, I'm going to hit play now and just start setting my gains. Okay, so I've got the keyboard part looping. So I just want to make sure the drummer's on. And then I want to make sure I'm set to view meter for the gain. I'm basically just using this for the preamplifier. I'm not bothering with the compressor at all. Just want to make sure it's just at mic level input. My master volume should be at unity, and then I can just use the gain to add gain until I'm getting roughly around 0 on the view meter. Okay, so you can see it coming in on 1 there. 2 and 3 are on board, so remember they're on mic level, and I'm just going to give them the gain that they need as well to get to the level I'm looking for. Okay, channel 3 is my room mic, so it's probably going to need more gain than the other 2 mics. It's a ribbon, and it's got its null pointing at the amps. I'm just shooting for the average of -8 peak. I'm going to give just a bit more to my drummer. Okay, so you can see those downstream signals being reflected on my channels 4, 5, and 6. Okay, so meanwhile over here in Pro Tools I can see those meters as well. So I'm ready for step 5. Step 5 is to place another delay on the room microphone. So we can just use channel 2 of the MX200 for that. Now I'm going to do this on the downstream portion. It's usually best to apply processing to downstream so that you can go back to your source file if you need to. So our room mic on the downstream is on channel 6. I'm going to use insert send 6 to go to the other MX200 channel. It's the R channel. And the output is just going to return. Insert return 6. Okay, great. So on channel 6 here, I'm going to go ahead and make sure the insert's in. Same idea. I want to make sure things are coming in at a half decent level over here. I want to make sure that channel 2 is set up the same way as a short delay. That's step 5 done. Great. So step 6 is to create a plate verb and send it from the room microphone, return it to the mix section using one of the stereo returns. So that same channel that I was working with before, channel 6, I'm just going to open up effects 1 on it. I can see how loud of a signal I'm sending out by looking at the meter over here. And there's a master volume if I want to get a bit more. You get the idea. Okay, now that I have a copy coming out of FXN1, I can patch it on the patch bay. Here is effects send 1 going over to the plate input. So that's a mono signal going in, but it returns in stereo because the plate output is a stereo output. So there's plate 1 and 2 coming out and going to echo return L1 R1. Okay, so here is that return. We're going to make sure that it's going to the mix bus and that it has some volume. Okay, so next step is to EQ the room microphone. We're going to high pass filter it at 200 hertz, and then we're going to use the shelf, the low shelf, to boost its low frequencies up to 600 hertz. So here is my room mic on the downstream, channel 6. I'm going to engage the EQ, and I'm going to roll off up to 200, followed by boosting some 600 with a shelf. Make sure you're not in bell mode for that. Make sure the EQ's in. And we should get a darker sounding room. Okay, so then after you have EQ'd the room, you just want to EQ the direct mics a little different from another. So that can be pretty easy. You can just throw in an EQ on those two channels, again on the downstream. Maybe just turn down some 2K on one channel, maybe some 5K on the other. You get the idea. Just make sure they're EQ'd a little bit different from one another. So that's step 7 and 8 done. Since everything's already going to the mix bus here, I should be able to just engage the +10 button to get the extra boost that I might need. I'm going to keep my master fader all the way down, and then when I hit play, I'm just going to find the right level by turning it up and looking at my view meter. I want to make sure my view meters are hitting around 0. Really don't want them pinning at +3 or anything. Okay, so that's not too bad. Now I'm going to go ahead and engage my compression. Turn it on here first, and then engage it here. From there, I'm just going to set my threshold and my attack until I'm getting just a little bit of gain reduction. Sort of like so. Check your makeup gain by turning it on and off. Just see if you need to check its makeup gain. All right. So now that our final level and our final compressor is set, we're ready to print this back to Pro Tools. So, first step to that is to send this mix output back to Pro Tools. If we go to mix out on the patch bay here, I'm just going to patch those two, left and right, back to some Pro Tools inputs that we're not using. So right now that is 7 and 8. I'm going to go back to Pro Tools in, 7 and 8. A7 and A8 for that matter. Okay, since that's our print track, we're going to need a dummy bus. Dead-end bus there. Okay, and then I'm going to make a stereo input for that print. It's on 7 and 8, so here's a new stereo input. We'll call that print. And I'm going to assign it to 7 and 8. Okay. Now I can make myself a stereo audio track. I want to make sure that I set it to dummy output and make sure it's set to print. Okay, and I should be able to print all 3 microphones and my reamp all at the same time. If I just hit record and play now. And there it is. It's the end of the RSS3311 final PASE. Good luck, guys.